Welcome on board, chosen one. Let's not pretend anymore. You felt the shift before anyone admitted it out loud. The tone changed. The jokes stopped landing. The room got quieter when you spoke. People who once talked over you now watch first, talk later. That wasn't confidence growing in them. That was recognition setting in. And recognition always comes late. Remember what they said at the beginning. Relax. You're overthinking. Know your place. They laughed because laughing is cheaper than facing facts. They dismissed you because dismissal feels safer than dealing with potential. Funny thing though, look who's whispering now. Look who suddenly wants meetings, updates, friendly check-ins. The same mouths that joked now hesitate. The same eyes that ignored you now track your moves. When they said, they'll burn out, you kept going. When they said, they don't have the backing, the universe cleared the path anyway. When they said, this won't last, it lasted long enough to scare them. Here's the part they never admit publicly. Someone noticed early, someone smarter than the rest, someone who understands patterns, not hype. When panic started spreading behind closed doors, they begged him to step in, to warn you, to slow you down, to save you from yourself. They framed it as concern, but concern doesn't sweat like that. They said, talk to them, please, tell them what's coming. He didn't argue, he didn't negotiate. He smiled. Not the friendly kind, not the fake encouragement smile, the kind that says, I already ran the numbers, the kind that says, you're late. When they asked if he could stop this, he gave them 2 words that landed heavier than any threat ever could. Too late. Not dramatic, not emotional, just accurate. Before we go further, pause for 1 second. If this message is landing where it's supposed to, press like and subscribe. Not for me, for the mission. That's how this signal gets stronger and how the right people keep finding it. Now back to the part that keeps them awake. You think this happened overnight. It didn't. This started years ago when you learned how to stay quiet while learning everything. When you watched people expose themselves just by talking too much. When you took losses that rewired you instead of breaking you. Most people collapse when plans fail. You adjusted. That difference matters more than talent ever will. They don't fear your noise. They fear your silence. They fear that you don't rush, that you don't explain, that you don't ask permission. You move like someone who already accepted the worst outcome and kept going anyway. That terrifies systems built on control. Look at history. Every shift starts the same way. The underestimated one works in plain sight, gets mocked, gets sidelined, gets advised. Then one day, the warnings flip. Suddenly it's, we should have listened. We didn't think they'd go this far. How did we miss this? They missed it because they were watching titles instead of pressure tolerance. They were counting followers instead of endurance. They were measuring approval instead of resilience. You were building something they don't have language for. Here's the cold fact they choke on. The moment they sent someone to warn you was the moment they admitted defeat. Winners don't warn, they act. Warnings come from people who already lost leverage. They don't need you to stop. They need time. And time stopped cooperating with them the second you stopped doubting yourself. This is the aftermath phase. The storm already passed through you. What you're standing in now is the quiet that follows impact, that eerie silence where everyone pretends nothing changed while adjusting everything behind the scenes. Invitations feel different. Resistance feels softer. Criticism sounds rehearsed. You're not imagining it. The universe doesn't whisper twice. It shifts once, and everything else scrambles to adapt. They wanted you scared. You got calm. They wanted you confused. You got clear. They wanted control. You chose independence. That's why too late wasn't cruel. It was honest. There's no undo button for someone who already outgrew the room. No warning fixes a mindset that already crossed the line from survival to inevitability. This isn't a speech. This is confirmation. You're not becoming something. You already did. And the people begging for warnings are just trying to catch up to a story that moved on without them. Stay steady. Stay quiet. Let the universe finish what momentum already started. And it's good. Yes. Because now comes the part where weak attention drops off, and only the dangerous ones stay. Before we move forward, understand this. What you're about to hear isn't comfort. It's not motivation fluff. It's a sequence, a breakdown, a quiet autopsy of how things reach the point where people are begging for warnings and getting nothing but a smile in return. If you're still here, it's because something in you already knows this story isn't random. It's familiar, uncomfortably familiar. So do this with intent. Hit the like button and subscribe, not as a favor, but as a signal. A signal that you're not just watching, you're participating, that you're one of the few willing to stay when things stop being polite and start being honest. This isn't about numbers. It's about strengthening a message that was never meant for everyone. Now, listen closely. If you're really built for what's coming next, you'll feel it pulling you forward. Not excitement, gravity. The kind that keeps you locked in because leaving would feel like unfinished business. This next part breaks things down step by step, from the moment they underestimated you to the exact second it became too late to stop you. Drop a comment with 777 if you're ready to keep going. Not for luck, not for superstition, but as a quiet nod that you understand isolation, silence, and being underestimated were never punishments. They were preparation. Take a breath. We're done warming up. Now we go deeper, and this is where the truth stops asking permission. Number 1. When the warning comes in a friendly voice, it's already over. They don't warn what they can still control. That's the part they hate admitting. Let this land properly. People don't send messengers when you're the one in danger. They send them when they are, when systems fail, when plans crack, when predictions collapse. The first thing cowards reach for is a middleman, someone polite, someone familiar. Someone who can smile while delivering fear disguised as concern. That alone tells you everything. You didn't cross a line yesterday. You crossed it long ago. They just noticed. Ask yourself this: why now? Why not when you were struggling? Why not when you were isolated, confused, or barely holding it together? Back then, nobody warned you. Nobody rushed in to protect you from what was coming. They watched. Some enjoyed it. Some bet against you. Some quietly hoped you'd fold, so they'd never have to deal with the version of you that survives pressure. They mistook your silence for defeat. That was mistake 1. Silence was you observing patterns while they exposed habits. They mistook your patience for weakness. That was mistake 2. Patience was you learning timing while they rushed for comfort. They mistook your withdrawal for surrender. That was fatal. Withdrawal was you stepping out of noise to rebuild without interference. Here's the truth that unsettles them. You didn't disappear. You recalibrated. Every time they thought you were done, you were adjusting. Every time they assumed you'd break, you adapted. While they measured progress in applause and approval, you were measuring endurance. While they needed reassurance, you learned how to operate without it. That's the kind of growth no one sees coming because it doesn't announce itself. Now the atmosphere has shifted. You can feel it. Conversations feel forced. Compliments sound cautious. Criticism arrives wrapped in politeness. The same people who once underestimated you are suddenly invested in your choices. That's not interest. That's surveillance. That's them trying to map something that already moved beyond their understanding. Here's a cold fact. When someone sends a messenger, it means direct confrontation no longer favors them. They don't trust their own position enough to speak plainly, so they outsource fear. They send someone to check on you, to give advice, to share concerns. Translation: please slow down so we can catch up. And notice who they send. Never the strongest, never the boldest. They send the agreeable one, the calm one, the one who can sell hesitation as wisdom, because they hope emotional familiarity will succeed where authority failed. It doesn't. You probably sensed it the moment it happened, that strange mix of amusement and clarity, the realization that if they need warnings now, the window already closed. That's why the response wasn't anger, it wasn't panic, it was composure, a quiet smile from someone who already understands leverage. They ask themselves questions they'll never say out loud. When did this happen? How did they change without us noticing? Why didn't pressure break them? The answers make them uncomfortable, so they stop digging. It's easier to believe you got lucky than to accept you evolved under conditions that would have erased them. Think of every story where the underestimated one survives long enough to become unavoidable. It always follows the same arc. Ridicule, dismissal, isolation, silence, then panic, then warnings. The warning phase is always the tell. It's the moment fear stops pretending to be confidence. And here's what the chosen ones need to hear clearly. If they're warning you now, it means you no longer need warnings. You already passed the point where advice applies. You've seen what happens when you listen to people who never walked your path. You've felt what it costs to doubt yourself, to keep others comfortable. That phase ended. They're not afraid of what you'll do to them directly. They're afraid of what you represent, proof that their rules aren't absolute, that their hierarchy isn't permanent, that someone can endure without approval and still win. You're evidence that their system leaks. So when they say, "We're just worried about you," hear what's underneath. "We're worried about losing control." When they say, "Maybe slow down," hear it clearly. "We need time to adjust." When they say, "This could end badly," translate it accurately. This already did for us. And the most brutal part, you didn't even do this to them on purpose. You did it by refusing to collapse, by staying consistent, by choosing growth over validation, by letting the universe respond to momentum instead of noise. That's why the smile mattered. Not arrogance, recognition. Recognition that this phase can't be undone. You can't warn someone who already survived the worst version of the story. You can't scare someone who made peace with isolation. You can't stop someone who learned to move without permission. The messengers didn't come to save you. They came to save themselves. And the moment they realized it was too late wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that settles when people finally understand they're no longer ahead of the curve, they're behind it. This isn't about revenge, it's about position. You're no longer reacting, you're the reference point, and once that happens, warnings stop mattering. They should have spoken earlier. They should have paid attention sooner. They should have understood silence better. Now all they have left is hindsight and hope. You moved past both. Number 2. The room went quiet because power just left it. Fear always holds meetings. Confidence never needs one. Picture this clearly, because this actually happened somewhere, somehow, in one form or another. A room, closed doors, phones face down, voices lowered like secrecy can still protect them. They called it a discussion, a check-in, a moment of alignment. That's cute. It was panic dressed in professional language. Panic wearing clean clothes and pretending it still had options. This is what they do when reality starts moving faster than their control. They gather, they circle up, they reassure each other with phrases like, "Let's be proactive," and "We still have time." Nobody says the real sentence out loud. We didn't think it would get this far, because admitting that would mean admitting they misjudged you from the start. Someone in that room said your name carefully, like it might bite. Someone else sighed and said this was getting out of hand. Another tried to downplay it, insisting you were still manageable, still predictable, still reachable. That's always the phase before collapse. Denial with a clipboard. They weren't worried about you losing control. They were worried about losing theirs. Imagine a group of people standing around a dam they ignored for years, suddenly noticing cracks. Nobody wants to admit they skipped maintenance, so they argue about paint colors while water starts seeping through. That's what that meeting was. Cosmetic concern over structural failure. They dressed their terror up as care, called it intervention, said things like, "We should talk to them before this escalates." As if escalation hadn't already happened, as if you hadn't already moved beyond the version of yourself they were comfortable managing, as if time still listened to them. Here's the part they didn't plan for. One person in that room wasn't panicking. He wasn't scrambling for solutions. He wasn't talking. He was watching who spoke first, watching who avoided eye contact, watching how quickly authority dissolved into anxiety, because experience teaches you this. When power starts leaking, noise increases. He knew something they didn't want to hear. You don't stop momentum by discussing it. You don't reverse evolution with concern. And you definitely don't regain leverage by pretending fear is strategy. Someone finally said it. Maybe you should reach out. Not because they cared about you, but because they hoped familiarity might succeed where dominance failed. They needed a messenger, someone who could approach you without triggering resistance, someone who could soften the truth, maybe slow you down, maybe plant doubt. That's when they looked at him, and that's when the room started losing heat. He had already seen this pattern before, different faces, same energy. The moment when a group realizes the story no longer centers them. The moment when influence slips quietly out the back door while everyone is still talking. He understood something brutal and simple. You don't warn storms. You don't negotiate with inevitability. You don't interrupt someone who already crossed the threshold. You don't fear what you can still stop. You fear what already escaped you. When they begged him to intervene, not suggested, begged, his answer didn't come from emotion. It came from clarity. 2 words, no explanation, no cushioning, no apology. Too late. Imagine dropping a glass in a silent room and watching it shatter. That's what those words did. The temperature changed instantly. Bodies stiffened, eyes widened. Someone laughed nervously, hoping it was a joke. It wasn't. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't justify himself. He didn't need to. Because too late isn't a threat. It's a timestamp. At that exact moment, everyone in that room understood something they'd been avoiding. This wasn't about fixing anything anymore. This was about consequences unfolding. The plan wasn't failing. It had already failed. They were just now catching up to the timeline. You ever notice how panic makes people replay the past? That room filled with silent rewinds. We should have noticed sooner. We underestimated them. We thought pressure would slow them down, each thought arriving too late to matter. Regret doesn't rewind momentum. It just makes it louder. Here's what chosen ones often wonder at this point. Why didn't they act earlier? Why wait until now? Because earlier you were useful. You fit their narrative. You were struggling, quiet, uncertain. That version of you didn't threaten structure. It reassured it. This version does. Imagine a chess game where one side suddenly realizes the other stopped reacting and started predicting. Every move now feels late. Every strategy feels exposed. That's what happened in that room. They weren't outplayed in that moment. They were outgrown long before it. The scariest realization isn't that you're losing. It's that the game moved on without you. They thought meetings created control. They thought discussion created safety. But real power doesn't need consensus. It moves quietly, builds privately, and shows up fully formed. That's what terrified them. There was no dramatic confrontation, no warning sirens, just a calm acknowledgement that the window had closed. And the universe doesn't reopen closed windows just because people panic. You didn't do anything wrong. That's what makes this so uncomfortable for them. You didn't attack. You didn't demand. You didn't announce. You simply kept going when others would have quit. You stayed consistent when applause disappeared. You grew in isolation when validation was removed. Imagine planting roots underground while everyone else argues about leaves. By the time the tree shows, it's already too late to move it. That's why that meeting ended the way it did, not with decisions, but with silence. The kind of silence that follows realization. The kind where people finally understand they're no longer early. They're observers. Silence isn't absence. Sometimes it's the sound of control changing hands. They left that room knowing one thing for sure. Whatever they thought they could manage, influence or redirect was already beyond reach. The messengers were too late. The concern was too late. The fear was right on time, but useless. And you didn't even need to be there. That's the final insult they'll never admit. The shift didn't require your presence. It happened because of who you became when nobody was watching, because you learned to move without permission, because you stopped waiting for acknowledgement. The meeting where they panicked wasn't about you anymore. It was about them realizing the story no longer asks for their input. And once that realization hits, there's nothing left to say. Number 3, you didn't evolve loudly. You evolved where they can't see. They tracked the surface and missed the shift underground. This is where they lost you completely. They expected your transformation to be obvious, loud, emotional, documented, something they could chart, label, and explain to each other so they'd feel safe again. They were watching for explosions, breakdowns, dramatic exits. They thought growth would announce itself like a headline. It didn't. You didn't get bigger on the outside. You got different on the inside. While they were measuring output, you were changing how you process pressure. While they were counting reactions, you were stripping attachments. They monitored the mask, the performance, the visible habits. Meanwhile, the real shift happened in places they don't have access to. Imagine this: they're watching a radar screen, confident they see everything moving in the sky. They never thought to look underground. They never considered that the most dangerous change isn't louder signals, but new operating levels. You didn't raise your voice, you changed frequency, and once that happens, their tools stop working. They expected rage, you chose restraint. They expected chaos, you simplified. They expected collapse, you stabilized. That's why they misread everything. Calm looks like weakness to people addicted to noise. Quiet feels like surrender to those who only respect force. Your stillness confused them because it didn't match their idea of power. They thought power was volume. You learned it was control. Here's a question you might have asked yourself. Why did they stop understanding me? Because they never learned how transformation actually works. Real evolution isn't flashy. It's surgical. It removes what no longer serves. It reduces reaction time. It sharpens judgment. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. From the inside, everything changed. The deadliest upgrades don't come with announcements. They thought you were shrinking, you were condensing, like a star collapsing inward before becoming something with gravity they can't escape. Less emotion, fewer words, cleaner moves. That terrified them, even if they couldn't explain why. By the time they realized you weren't breaking, just recalibrating, it was already too late to map you. They lost the ability to predict. And when predictability dies, fear takes its place. You didn't become someone new. You became unreadable, and that's the transformation they never saw coming. Number 4, you didn't walk away. You exited the game entirely. They thought they still had access. That was the mistake. Your silence wasn't obedience. Your calm wasn't compliance. That's the lie they told themselves so they could sleep at night. While they were busy congratulating each other for handling you, you were quietly uninstalling yourself from their entire system. No announcement, no drama, no exit speech, just a clean disconnect. They thought you were still playing by their rules because you didn't argue. They assumed you were still on their board because you didn't resist loudly. That's how shallow control works. It mistakes quiet for consent. It mistakes peace for defeat. Meanwhile, you were already gone. Imagine a chess player who stands up, leaves the table, and walks into a different room while the opponent keeps making moves, convinced they're still winning. That's what happened here. You didn't flip the board. You didn't knock pieces over. You simply stopped existing inside their framework. The most powerful move is leaving without explaining. You stepped out of their approval loops, their expectations, their punishments and rewards. And here's the part that really rattled them. The universe didn't collapse when you left. It adjusted. Doors opened differently. Timing started favoring you. Situations bent instead of blocked. People responded without being prompted. That's when panic set in. They couldn't categorize it. You weren't rebelling, so they couldn't label you a threat the usual way. You weren't failing, so they couldn't dismiss you. You weren't asking, so they couldn't control you. You became an error in their system, an outcome that didn't match inputs. You might have wondered, why does everything feel lighter now? Because you're no longer dragging dead weight from structures that needed you smaller. Systems always resist until they realize resistance costs more than accommodation. That's when reality rearranges itself quietly. When you leave the cage, the bars don't disappear. They just stop being yours. They noticed too late. Not when you left, but when results started following you without permission. That's what scared them. You didn't escape loudly, you escaped completely. And there's nothing more dangerous than someone you can't place back where they came from. Number 5. He saw what they're afraid to admit about you. You didn't recover from the damage. You learned how to run on it. This is the part they can't sit with. This is why conversations stop when your name comes up. He knows something about you that breaks their coping stories. You didn't just survive what they put you through. Survival would have left you bitter, loud, stuck, explaining yourself forever. You did something worse for them. You metabolized it. Every betrayal, every quiet setup, every time they left you hanging and hoped you'd crumble, you processed it like fuel. No drama, no public meltdown. It went straight into your system and came back as clarity. That's not healing the way they understand it. That's conversion. That's turning damage into efficiency. Imagine this. 2 people touch fire. One spends life avoiding heat. The other learns how to forge steel. That's the difference they missed. They thought pain would make you fragile. It made you precise. Some people heal to feel better. Others heal to become unstoppable. They expected anger. They waited for revenge. They assumed you'd need closure, apologies, explanations. That's how they measure growth. But you outgrew all of that. You didn't forgive to free them. You detached to free yourself. That's a level most people never reach, and it terrifies those who rely on emotional hooks. You might have noticed it yourself, the moment when rage stopped motivating you, when proving a point felt unnecessary, when even winning against them felt small. That wasn't numbness, that was graduation. Here's the truth they can't handle. Indifference isn't weakness, it's finality. Anger keeps you tied. Indifference cuts the rope. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't need validation. They can't threaten someone who already made peace with loss. They can't provoke someone who no longer reacts. You don't seek revenge because you don't need it to feel powerful. He saw that early. He saw you weren't carrying wounds anymore. You were carrying leverage. And once someone understands that, they also understand why warnings don't work on you. Because you're not running from the past, you're running on it. Number 6. You found the exit. They don't want anyone to know exists. The most dangerous thing you can realize is that participation was always optional. This is the secret they pray never spreads, because once it does, their entire structure collapses quietly. You figured out something they depend on people never noticing. You can opt out. No rebellion, no confrontation, no dramatic showdown, just a clean refusal to keep playing games that were never designed for you to win. They built hierarchies, rankings, approval ladders, and invisible rules, assuming everyone would keep chasing the same carrots. Status, validation, permission. You stopped chasing, and the moment you did, their grip loosened without a fight. Imagine a casino where one player stands up mid-game, cashes out and walks away while everyone else keeps betting harder, convinced the next hand will save them. That's you. You didn't beat the house. You exposed it by leaving. You can't control someone who doesn't need your scoreboard. You realize their opinions don't touch reality. They only echo inside the rooms they control. Outside those rooms, they're just noise. Once that clicked, you became unreachable. Not emotionally, structurally. They can't punish what doesn't report to them. They can't reward what doesn't ask. They can't threaten someone who already left the field. You might have asked yourself, Why do they still talk about me if I'm gone? Because systems panic when someone exits without permission. It reveals the illusion. If one person can leave and still thrive, others might notice the door too. Think of it like unplugging from a machine that only works if everyone stays connected. The moment one wire disconnects and still functions, the machine looks fragile. That's what scares them. Freedom isn't loud, it's silent, and that's why it spreads. You're no longer reacting to their metrics. You're not chasing their timelines. You're not negotiating your worth. And that makes you unconquerable. Not because you're fighting harder, but because you're not in the arena anymore. They can't reach you because you're not where their hands are trained to grab. And once someone learns that, there's no putting them back. Number 7. They thought you were isolated. You were recruited. They cut you off from their circle, not knowing you were being rerouted. This is where their fear quietly turns into dread. They truly believed isolation would weaken you, that cutting you off would make you smaller, louder, desperate for re-entry. That's how their system works. Remove access, starve attention, wait for collapse. It's worked on enough people that they stopped questioning it. It didn't work on you. You didn't disappear into loneliness. You upgraded networks. While they were busy guarding gates to a decaying structure, you connected with people who don't need gates at all. No titles, no ceremonies, no permission slips, just recognition. The kind that doesn't ask who you know, only what you've survived and what you can build. Imagine this. They shut down a landline, proud they cut communication. They didn't realize you switched to satellites years ago. Different infrastructure, different reach, completely invisible to their monitoring tools. Real networks don't announce themselves. They recognize each other. You found people who opted out like you did. People who don't argue with systems, they bypass them. People who don't seek validation, they seek alignment. Conversations got sharper, silence got more comfortable, moves got cleaner. That's when you knew you weren't alone. You were just no longer surrounded by noise. They can't see this network because it doesn't behave like power as they understand it. No hierarchy to infiltrate, no leader to pressure, no spotlight to sabotage. It's a parallel structure running quietly underneath theirs. And it grows every time someone like you stops asking for approval. You might have wondered, why do I feel supported even without visible support? Because you're no longer drawing strength from crowds. You're connected to people who operate independently but move in sync. They isolated you from control, not from connection. That's the part they never recover from. You're not standing alone. You're standing somewhere they don't exist. And nothing scares an old power structure more than a network it can't map, monitor, or touch. They didn't exile you. They accidentally introduced you to your real allies. Number 8. No one is coming to save you. Because you don't need saving. Warnings are for people walking into danger, not for those walking out of cages. This is the part that drives them insane. They're still waiting for someone to pull you aside, lower their voice, give you that serious look and say, "Hey, I just want to make sure you know what you're doing." They keep expecting a moment where you hesitate, where doubt creeps back in, where you second-guess the path. It never comes because you're not spiraling, you're not lost, you're not self-destructing, you're finally aligned. And that's the one outcome they never planned for. They think silence means confusion. They think calm means denial. They think distance means avoidance. That's how their minds work. They've never seen someone walk the right path without asking for permission first. They don't understand movement that doesn't look reckless or obedient, so they assume something must be wrong. Here's the truth that flips the entire story. You don't get a warning because you're not heading toward danger. You already passed it. Everything they call safe was the trap. The approvals, the rules, the timelines, the constant need to be understood. That's where people disappear slowly. The real danger was staying where they felt comfortable. Imagine standing at the edge of a burning building while people inside scream for you to come back because it feels familiar to them. That's what their concern sounds like. They want to warn you about freedom because freedom exposes how trapped they are. They keep waiting for someone to stop you, but nobody steps in because anyone who actually sees clearly knows this can't be undone. You don't interrupt someone who finally chose themselves. You don't warn someone who's already immune to manipulation. There's no warning coming because the warning already happened and you listened. And here's the final twist they can't swallow. The warning was never meant for you. It was for them, a signal that their influence expired, that their system no longer reaches you, and nobody's delivering that message out loud because reality already did. You're not being reckless, you're being precise, and that's why the silence stays. Number 9. They're arguing in a burning room while you're already outside. You don't abandon sinking ships by debate. You leave them to the water. This is where the split becomes permanent. They're still inside their collapsing world, talking in circles, repeating the same ideas louder, hoping volume will fix decay. Same beliefs, same rules, same recycled advice passed around like wisdom. Every conversation exists only to reassure each other that nothing needs to change. Meanwhile, you're already gone. They mistake silence for absence. It's not. It's completion. Everyone who evolved past their system isn't interested in waking them up, saving them, or arguing facts. You can't debate someone out of a structure they emotionally depend on. So you don't try, you build elsewhere. Imagine people rearranging furniture on a ship that's taking on water, convinced the problem is placement, not the hole in the hull. That's them. Meetings, think pieces, long explanations, emergency optimism. None of it stops the flood. When a world starts collapsing, those who see it early don't warn. They relocate. You might have wondered why nobody ever comes back to explain things properly, why no one tries one last time to convince them. Because explanation is wasted energy when gravity already chose sides. The people who moved on aren't arrogant, they're efficient. You're part of that quiet migration. The builders, the ones who don't announce departures or victories. You don't need agreement to move forward. You don't need permission to create. You're not fueled by proving them wrong. You're fueled by momentum. They're stuck reinforcing beliefs that only make sense inside their echo chambers. Outside of it, those beliefs don't function. That's why they feel so aggressive now. When ideas stop working in reality, people start defending them emotionally. Echo chambers get louder as reality gets quieter. You're not heartless for leaving them behind. You're accurate. You saw the trajectory and chose not to sync with it. While they argue about what went wrong, you're already operating in what's next. Nobody's coming back to convince them, and that's not cruelty. That's evolution moving forward without waiting for consensus. Number 10. No one tells a force of nature to calm down. You don't warn what's working, you study it. Here's the final reality they're forced to swallow. No one is coming to tell you to stop. Not because people are scared to speak up, but because there's nothing to correct. Who's going to warn you that you're becoming too free, too independent, too self-directed? That sentence doesn't even make sense outside a collapsing system. Warnings exist to prevent damage. You're not causing damage, you're producing results. The only people capable of understanding what's happening to you are the ones who already escaped the same traps. And notice something important: they're not pulling you back. They're not slowing you down. They're nodding, quietly, with recognition, because they know what this stage looks like from the inside. Imagine trying to stop a river that finally broke through a dam. You don't stand in front of it and lecture water about responsibility. You step back and take notes. That's what's happening now. You're no longer a problem to solve. You're a pattern to observe. When growth stops being chaotic, it stops being questioned. You might have wondered, why isn't anyone intervening anymore? Because intervention only works on people who are unsure. You're not drifting, you're deliberate, your choices are cleaner, your energy is stable. You're not chasing approval or reacting emotionally. There's nothing to grab onto. That's why the warnings dried up. You're not breaking rules anymore. You're operating beyond them. And systems don't warn what they can't reach. They archive it, study it, try to reverse engineer it for the next generation. You're not a rebel. You're a blueprint. That's the shift that seals it. You went from being monitored to being referenced, from being doubted to being quietly respected, from being underestimated to being used as an example, even if they'll never say your name out loud. No one tells you to stop, because stopping would mean undoing proof that this path works, that opting out works, that independence doesn't lead to collapse, but clarity. You're not a warning sign on the road. You're the map people wish they had earlier. Number 11. They don't fear your failure. They're terrified of your proof. Nothing scares control more than success it didn't authorize. This is the fear they never say out loud. They didn't want you destroyed. That would have been easy to explain. They wanted you paused, redirected, softened. They wanted an intervention, a rescue story, a neat little moment where someone pulls you back into something familiar and manageable. That moment never came. Because you don't need saving. You needed space. And once you got it, everything they hoped wouldn't happen started happening anyway, quietly, cleanly, without their fingerprints on it. Imagine watching someone walk away from a burning building you insisted was safe, then seeing them thrive in fresh air while you're still coughing inside. That's what your success feels like to them. Not inspiring. Exposing. It proves they were wrong about the rules, the risks, and the limits they swore were real. Failure can be blamed. Success rewrites the story. They're horrified not because you're powerful, but because you're untouchable. They can't slow you down with doubt. They can't bait you with approval. They can't threaten you with exclusion. You already lived without them and discovered nothing essential was missing. You might have noticed something strange. Fewer opinions, less resistance, less feedback altogether. That's not peace. That's distance. They can't even see the real you anymore because the version they understood doesn't exist. You evolved out of their frame. Think of trying to stop a train after it's already left the station by arguing with the tracks. That's their position now. No leverage, no access, just observation mixed with regret. The scariest success is the kind that doesn't look back. They can't stop it, they can't slow it, and they can't follow because doing so would mean admitting everything they built was smaller than they claimed. You're already gone, already different, already free, and that's the part that keeps them awake. Number 12. The second they understand you're out of range. The worst moment isn't rejection. It's realizing access is gone forever. This is the moment everything inside them drops. Not dramatically, not with shouting or confrontation. It happens quietly, and that's why it breaks them. They reach out, casually at first. A message, a comment, a subtle probe disguised as familiarity, and nothing lands the way it used to. Not because you're ignoring them, because you're not there anymore. That's when it hits, the delay in response, the lack of emotional pull, the absence of tension they used to rely on. They realize they can't reach you the way they once could. No buttons work, no phrases trigger reactions, no guilt sticks. You're not resisting, you're simply unavailable. Imagine shouting across a canyon and hearing your own voice come back weaker each time. That's what their attempts feel like now. Echoes, nothing else. Unreachable doesn't mean blocked. It means irrelevant. They replay old tactics in their head. The tone that used to work, the pressure that used to bend you, the approval that once kept you close. None of it connects. It's like trying to log into a system that no longer exists. Wrong password. Wrong platform. Wrong reality. This is where hope dies for them, not in anger, in clarity. They finally understand you didn't leave emotionally. You left structurally. You moved to a place where their influence doesn't travel. And that realization collapses something inside them because control only survives on access. You might have felt it too, that strange calm when you notice nothing pulls at you anymore. No urge to explain, no need to respond, no curiosity about what they think. That's not numbness, that's arrival. You don't close the door, you outgrow the room. They don't get closure, they don't get a final conversation. They get silence that doesn't invite response, and that's when it becomes permanent. The moment they realize you're unreachable isn't loud, it's the moment they stop trying and never recover. Number 13. Your silence wasn't kindness, it was the sentence. Silence isn't confusion, it's a conclusion. This is where it ends, and not in the way they expected. They thought silence meant you were still thinking, still processing, still open to one last conversation where everything could be explained, softened, repaired. They waited for a response they could work with. It never came. Not because you were hurt, not because you were scared, but because there was nothing left to say. You didn't go quiet to punish them. You went quiet because the case was closed. No appeal, no retrial, no commentary. That's what makes silence terrifying to people who survive on reaction. Anger feeds them, arguments feed them, even explanations feed them. Silence gives them nothing to grab. Imagine delivering a verdict and then walking out of the courtroom without looking back. No speech, no justification, just footsteps fading. That's your silence, final, non-negotiable. When someone stops explaining, they've already decided. You don't defend yourself anymore because there's nothing on trial. You don't warn them because warnings are for people you still feel responsible for. You don't confront because confrontation keeps you tied to outcomes that don't matter anymore. This is what chosen ones struggle with at first, the urge to clarify, to make sure they understand, to clean up misunderstandings. But here's the truth. People who wanted to understand already did. The rest were never confused. They were invested in misunderstanding you. Silence cuts through all of that. The loudest answer is the one that denies access. They keep replaying conversations in their head, trying to find the moment they lost you. They don't realize it wasn't one moment. It was the day you stopped needing to be heard. Your silence isn't passive, it's precise. It tells them everything they need to know without giving them anything they can use, and that's why it terrifies them, because silence isn't absence, it's the final verdict. Number 14. Too late was never about you, it was the diagnosis for them. Too late isn't an insult, it's a timestamp. This is where everything clicks into place. That smile, those two words, they weren't aimed at you. They were never meant to stop you, scare you, or slow you down. Too late wasn't rejection. It wasn't cruelty. It wasn't arrogance. It was confirmation. They wanted a warning for you because they thought you were about to make a mistake. What they couldn't accept is that the mistake already happened. And it wasn't yours, it was theirs, years ago. Back when they misread you, back when they assumed pressure would break you instead of refine you, back when they thought silence meant weakness. By the time they asked someone to warn you, the universe had already moved. Momentum had already chosen a direction. You weren't approaching a cliff, you were already past the trap. You don't warn someone after the door has already closed. That's why the words landed the way they did. Flat, calm, final, not emotional, not dramatic, because nothing was unfolding anymore. It had already unfolded. They were just late to the realization. You don't feel victorious because you defeated them. You feel calm because you're done proving anything. There's no adrenaline here, no revenge fantasy, just clarity, the kind that settles when effort aligns with reality. The warning they wanted for you was actually meant for them, a warning that their influence expired, that their timing was off, that their system no longer applied, and the universe already delivered it, quietly, without asking for their permission. Inevitability doesn't argue, it arrives. That's why there's nothing left to say. No celebration, no explanation, no closing speech. Just movement forward. Too late wasn't a threat. It was the moment the story stopped needing them. And you don't rush. You don't look back. You continue, already free. And now we close this, not with noise, but with certainty. Everything you just heard wasn't meant to hype you up. It was meant to settle you. The shift already happened. The warnings came late. The doors closed quietly. What's ahead doesn't need approval, explanation, or permission. You're already moving in the direction the universe cleared long ago, and nothing behind you can reach that far anymore. If this message resonated, like the video, subscribe, and drop 777 in the comments to mark that you're staying the course. Share this with someone who needs the reminder. This chapter is finished.